Before we get into today's show, I want to tell you about a new offering from MD Coaches. Group coaching for physicians is a small, virtual, confidential cohort designed to inspire participants to rediscover personal and professional fulfillment. The next cohort begins on Thursday, October 6th, and runs weekly until November 10th. And you can earn 1 CME credit per session, totaling 6 credits in all. To learn more and to register, visit www.mdcoaches.store. Space is limited, so be sure and register today.
If trauma can be handed down through generations, then healing can also be handed down through generations. And I want parents to say to themselves, the trauma stops with me.
Paging Dr. Cook. Paging Dr. Cook. Dr. Cook, you're wanted in the OR. Dr. Cook, you're wanted in the OR.
Welcome to the Prescription for Success podcast with your host, Dr. Randy Cook.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Prescription for Success. I'm Dr. Randy Cook, your host for the podcast, which is a production of MD Coaches, providing leadership and executive coaching for physicians by physicians to overcome burnout, transition your career, develop as a leader, or whatever your goal might be. Visit MD Coaches on the web at mymdcoaches.com because you're not in this alone. And don't forget, CME credit is available when you listen with us. Just look for CMFI in the show notes to learn how. My guest today is a Nigerian-born, board-certified pediatrician in addition to TEDx speaker, suicide prevention advocate, and retired colonel from the United States Air Force, among many other things. Dr. Lulu Umeh was kind enough to join us and share part of that story. I'm really looking forward to my conversation today with Dr. Uchenna Umeh, Dr. Lulu, if I may, who is out in San Antonio, Texas. Is that right? Have I got you right geographically?
Yeah, I like to say North Mexico, really, because we're so close.
I
so
see.
I
That's
like
well
to say
said.
I'm in San Antonio, Texas, aka North Mexico. Yeah.
I got you. Well, listen, I'm really looking forward to this conversation, Dr. Lulu. I have heard so much about you and read so much about you, and really looking forward to hearing your story. And as we always do, I want to get to your origin story first. You were born in Nigeria, got your early education in Nigeria, and can you tell us a little bit about that? About how old were you when you decided that you were going to go into medicine, and what was your medical education like?
I like to say I was born, bred, buttered, and slightly burned in Nigeria, which is in West Africa. For those who don't know, I know some people think all of Africa is the same. It's not the same. West Africa is completely different from North Africa, which is completely different from, all of Africa is different. So I was born in West Africa. I'm Igbo, which is the southeastern/eastern part of Nigeria. We are Igbos, IGBO. So I know the English spell it IBO, but the correct word is IGBO. It's a B, not a B. So Igbo is the language that I speak, or the language of my forefathers and my foreparents. So I am Igbo. I went to school in Nigeria. I did all of my elementary school and high school and medical school in Nigeria. In Nigeria, at least in my days when I was younger, we were colonized by the Brits, as most people know. So we had the British school system where you do 6 years of elementary school, 5 years of high school, and then college. So I went into high school at 11 and I went into college at 17 because that's kind of, that's what, if you do the math. I think I didn't really want to be a doctor. Not really. I wanted to be an architect. I think I still want to be an architect. I wanted to be an architect and I don't know why. I love buildings. I love old buildings. I love art. I love creating. I love drawing. And I mostly draw still life. In other words, I cannot draw a face. If I could, I just can't. But I can draw trees and I can draw boxes and planes or whatever. I'm not good at faces. So I've just always liked that aspect. And I love old buildings. I'm just attracted to like any downtown location. I want to see their old buildings. I don't know. I was just enamored with it. So my dad thought it was a little more masculine and said, well, why don't you do something more feminine like your cousin who happened to be a pharmacist? And I was like, what? Why? And he was like, well, I don't know. Architecture is kind of masculine. I'm like, what? So I was like, well, rather than do pharmacy, why don't I just go medical school? Why stop at pharmacy? So as a 16-year-old, I didn't know anything except I don't want to be a pharmacist. In my mind, it was like a lesser version of a doctor. So I was like, if I'm going to eat frogs, and I'll eat frogs with eggs in them, which is what they say in the Yoruba land. There's an adage that if you're going to eat frogs, then eat frogs with eggs in them, because at least you're getting a better frog. So that's kind of how the whole medical school thing came about. It was never planned. Yeah. I got good grades. I got a scholarship through high school and through med school, but it was not, it wasn't pre-planned. Didn't really want to be a doctor. And I think that's one of the reasons it was easy for me to do it for 30 years, which sounds like a long time. But most doctors, are doctors till they die. For me, I said, you know what, I'm going to do it for X amount of years and I'm going to stop. Because my first love is not medicine. Even though I was a phenomenal pediatrician and I love pediatrics and I have a tattoo that says Peds for Life on one of my arms. But I really think I was created for the arts. And so I went to debate club when I was in high school. I did drama. I did singing, I did music, I did traditional music, I was in athletics and sports, and I just feel like I'm more of an artist and a creator, which is probably where the architecture thing came from.
That urge to be expressive through the arts is actually common with a lot of physicians. And before we go any further, I really am curious, and I chase these conversations in a lot of different directions, but I'm curious to know, you mentioned that your native language was not English, or at least that's what I think I heard. And if I'm correct about that, when did you learn English, and under what circumstances?
Yeah, so my native language is Igbo. I, like most Nigerians, speak more than 2 languages. I think I can safely say more than 3, actually, languages. I speak 8, but most people in Nigeria stop at about 3. And then enough people in Nigeria speak about 5. I'm one of few that speak 8, but I have always had a flair for languages.
Quite an accomplishment.
Thank you. But we do study English in school. We have English is our lingua franca, which because we were colonized by the Brits, so English is our lingua franca. Does it mean my grandparents spoke English? No, they didn't speak English because they probably didn't learn English in school. But by the time I came around, and my parents came around, people were learning English in school because I think the colonialists had come already at that time. So that said, I also have a flair for languages. I think it's also part of the arts part of me, an expressive part of me.
Absolutely. So. And I cannot even begin to tell you how awestruck I am by anyone who speaks more than one language, because I don't. I did study German when I was a college kid, but I never became fluent. And I'm just amazed at people such as yourself who have become facile and fluent in all of those. And I want to ask you one other thing about medical school. You had mentioned that it was really not your idea to be there, but when you got there, did you feel like it was a struggle to get this done, or did you develop a little bit of a love affair with it?
No, I'm just one of those people. I'm the first of 6 children. I'm very, very, very driven. So, I mean, I'm just the kind of person that I'll make mud cakes if I have mud and water. So I'm not going to say, oh, I really want flour. I'm going to make mud cakes. Or people say lemonade in America.
Mm-hmm.
But we have mud cakes in Nigeria, so I use mud cakes. So yeah, I'll make mud cakes if I have mud and water. And now I enjoy making it and even, feed it to you with, caviar on it. I like to, it's like if I don't get what I want, then I must want what I've got kind of thing. So I got to medical school. I mean, like I said, I didn't want to do medical school as first choice. But I told my dad, I said, rather than go to pharmacy school, I'd rather to go to medical school. And he said, okay. And I said, okay. So once the conversation was over, I was going to go to medical school. It was fine. It didn't bother me. But at the beginning, I didn't say, oh, Dad, guess what? I want to do medicine. No. However, when I got to medical school, it was very, very obvious that I was going to be a pediatrician because I love children. And everyone would say, oh, my God, well, I hope you're doing pediatrics because I want to hold people's kids. I want to diagnose people's kids on the bus and things like that. So once I got into medical school, like most people, when I did urology, I said, oh, maybe it's urology. When I did radiology, I said, well, maybe it's radiology. But when I got to pediatrics, I knew I was home. So I never looked anywhere else since then. Mm-hmm.
And when did you come to the decision that you wanted to come to this country? I mean, this is where you got your pediatrics training, right?
Yes. I mean, it was easy when I did my housemanship, which is internship, I think is what they call it in America. But I think they call it housemanships too. So when I did my housemanship, which is my first year after graduation, there were 2 phenomenal physicians who were my attendings. Both of them women, both of them Igbo. No, I think one was Igbo and one was Yoruba. But both of them were women and both of them were just amazing. I just loved the way their clinical methods. I loved the way they practice medicine. I loved their whole attitude to medicine and the way they dress, the way they carried themselves. And I just wanted to know, more about them. And then I found out that they both went to Howard. And I was like, wait, what? I don't know where Howard is, but I want to go there. And so I think I do believe in, laws of attraction and being able to manifest your future and just speak it into existence. So once I found out that those 2 ladies went to Howard, it was over.
When you first heard about Howard University, you were not aware that it was in Washington?
No, not necessarily. I knew Howard was in America. I knew it was, that's all I knew. But it didn't matter to me because growing up, you need to have known me that I just don't see obstacles. It doesn't exist. It's like it doesn't exist. So it didn't matter where Howard was. I wanted to go to Howard because I wanted to be like these 2 women. I wanted to be like each of them individually. Then when I found out that both of them went to Howard, I was sold on Howard. And going back to laws of attraction, when you believe, my 3 ABCs, I know we're going to get to this later on, but my ABCs for life is number 1, ask for what you want. Number 2, believe you're going to get it. And number C, conquer your fears along the way. So that's ABCs for me. So I knew I wanted to go to Howard. I believed I was going to get to Howard. I just had to conquer the fears along the way, which ended up not being much looking back now. So we could talk about that later. But I just knew I wanted to go to wherever these 2 women went. And then it just happened to be Howard. I was sold on Howard.
And when you got there, was Howard everything that you imagined that it would be, or was it terribly different? What was the experience like for you? I mean, that's a big risk for a young woman like that.
Obviously my dad was like, wait, you're not married. Where do you think you're going? And I was like, I want to go to Howard. And my dad is I wouldn't say misogynistic, but certainly patriarchal. Certainly he was born and raised in Nigeria, which is a very patriarchal country, much like America. Men make decisions for women, fathers make decisions for daughters. And we did in the past have this, mindset of, girls are meant to just get married and have children That's it. You're born to just dream about your wedding day. I was not like that. I wasn't raised that way. I wanted to just kind of conquer the world. And once my dad saw that I wasn't going to be waived, he said, okay, so you want to go to America? You're not married. Just make sure you don't go there and do drugs, because that's all we heard about people in America. All they do is drugs. So,
I can
and I was
understand.
like, yeah. And I was like, okay, sure. It's on. And that was it. But then he's like, wait, one more thing. You have to raise half of your airfare. And I was like, okay. And then I raised 3/4 of my airfare. So I've always been extra. I've always liked being extra. I
An
love being
overachiever.
extra. And so I raised 3/4 of my airfare. And so at that point, you just pretty much couldn't say no. But it's not as easy as that. To get into school in the United States from Nigeria, at least then, this was in 93, 94, you have to take the exams, what they call the USMLE exams. And so you have to first take them, you have to pass them, then you have to apply, and then you have to get invited, then you have to get a visa, and then you have to come and do an interview like everyone else, and then you have to match. So it's not quite like, oh, I want to go to Howard, and Howard, here I come. So I had to first pass the exams, which, I scaled them great. And then I had to apply. So what I did was apply to 75 schools in total across the U.S. I didn't
75.
know where was where. I just applied, and it was snail mail. This was in the 90s. It was snail mail. I put each one, I licked each envelope and sealed all of them with a kiss and a wink, and just kind of sent them out into the universe. And I think I got 8 responses back. Of the 8 responses I got back, 2 of them invited me for an interview. One of them was Howard, and the other one was Miami Children's. And by the time I got you have to now take it and go get a visa. And to get a visa, you have to show them that you're not going to the country to be a burden. You're going to go and you're going to come back and things like that. Coincidentally, I had been to the US, I think maybe a couple of years before that on vacation and come back. So I'm just thinking that the universe was like, okay, she's shown, I don't know, evidence that she's not going to come and be a burden and all of that. So I used my 2 interview letters to get the visa. But by the time I got the visa, I think I had missed the interview for Miami Children's. So I only had my 1 Howard interview.
Oh, wow.
I think I did Miami. I think I did Miami. I'm not sure, but I did have both of them. But then when I got here, a friend of mine got me to also interview at Bronx, Lebanon, because he was like the chief resident there. So I had Bronx, Lebanon as well. But when I got to Howard, specifically on the last day of the interview, the lady said my interview was the day before. So I had already missed my interview.
Oh, my goodness.
I was like, ma'am, so just so you know, I actually came to America for this interview. What can we do about it? Coincidentally, one of the things I do is, I guess network very, very well. So while I was waiting for all of this to work out, I used to call the Department of Pediatrics in Howard. I'll call to ask if, they got my letter, or I'll call to ask if, what's the next step, or I'll call to ask one thing. I would call from my father's house, and we're 6 hours ahead. I had to figure out when it was 9 to 5, when it's lunchtime, so I can call when the lady is there, as soon as she gets to work, before she gets busy, and things like that. So it was really a labor of love. And then the only thing that saved me in the lead was like, wait, are you such and such, the lady who's been calling me from Nigeria? I was like, yes, that's me. She was like, oh my goodness. She said, okay, wait right here. And then she went, I don't know what magic she did, and she got me on to interview on the last day of the last interview. And
so
then
you
she was
had
like,
already
well,
won her over before you ever walked in.
Yes. I think she was just, so I don't know how many people do that, the dedication of calling almost every day or every week just to see. But I think she was half bewildered and half bewildered. I mean, that's it. She was like, what? You actually came, And she was like, well, there are 1,400 students vying for 16 spots. I said, just get me the interview. That's it. Just get me the interview. And the rest is history. And I got in as one of the 16.
That's a great story.
So,
great story.
It's America. I mean, coming to America, it was my second time around. But I think the biggest surprise was just the names of like some medicines and some things, like we call it nappy rash and y'all call it diaper rash, or we call it Ampiclox and y'all call it amoxicillin, and, we call it Panadol and y'all call it Tylenol. We call it, the pigeonhole, you call it the glove compartment, and we call it boot and you call it trunk. So things like that.
Those little things.
Yeah, people take for granted. But as an immigrant, that was my reality. I had to know, well, it's not a torchlight, it's a flashlight, So if you've never been in that situation, you take it for granted, but I had to adjust to that. I think my biggest adjustment, though, was just getting used to seeing so many single moms and young moms, for that matter, with strollers. It's just something I'd never, ever, ever seen. So I was most bewildered, if I may use that vocabulary, at just the number of children having children and there are no fathers. I'm like, wait, what? They're not married? No. And this is all three of them are your kids? Yes. And you're 19? Yes. I'm like, what? That was huge for me. That was very, very huge for me. It took a lot. And I still don't think I'm over it. Just, I guess, almost the loss of innocence and,
I think very few Americans are aware of how different this country is in that regard compared to lots of other places. But I want to move you along a little bit. So when did you make the decision that you were going to stay in this country?
So most of us don't go back when we do residency. I did come with a special visa called a J1 visa, where it's like an student exchange visa program where the country, I don't know which country is paying for who's the money, but the human being, after they're done with their training, will need to go back to their home country for 4 years, at least a duration of 3 to 4 years before they can come back to America, or they now have to serve in a health professional shortage area, which is usually what most of us do. So it was a no-brainer for me to do the other route, mainly because it's really, you can't really, it's not guaranteed that you're going to get a visa. And the older you get, it's just one of that. Most people do not go back. So I didn't. It was not on the agenda to go back. I just didn't.
Hi, I'm Rhonda Crow, founder and CEO for MD Coaches. Here on RX for Success, we interview a lot of great medical professionals on how they grew their careers, how they overcame challenges, and how they handle day-to-day work. I really hope you're getting a lot of great information. But if you're looking for an answer to a specific problem, management or administration challenge, or if you're feeling just a bit burnt out, like maybe you chose the wrong career, well, then there's a faster way to get the help you need. No, it's not counseling, it's coaching. RX for Success is produced by MD Coaches, a team of physicians who have been where you are. I know you're used to going it alone, but you don't have to. Get the support you need today. Visit us at mymdcoaches.com to schedule your complimentary consultation. Again, that's mymdcoaches.com, because you're not in this alone.
We'll get back to our interview in just a moment, but right now I want to tell you a little bit about Physician Outlook. If you haven't discovered this remarkable magazine, please do so very soon. It was created by physicians for physicians to showcase the intersection between clinical and non-clinical interests. Whether it's writing, painting, cooking, politics, and dozens of other topics, Physician Outlook gives a physician perspective. It's available online and in print. It's really unique among physician lifestyle magazines. And like the Prescription for Success podcast, Physician Outlook amplifies the voice of any physician who has something to say. It also engages patients who still believe in physician-led, team-based care. And Prescription for Success listeners can get 3 months free when you enter our promo code RX for Success and select the monthly option at checkout. That's a really great deal on this stunning publication. And now let's get back to today's interview. So tell us about your experience in South Carolina.
I mean, it wasn't actually terrible. I'm from a small town in Nigeria. I was raised from humble beginnings. Yes, my dad did go on to become a 2-star general in the Nigerian Air Force, but I wasn't even there when he was that. I was raised with just humble beginnings. We're Catholic, so I thought I liked the emphasis on religion and Christianity in the South. And then I realized that, there's also racism and there's colorism and there's genderism and all the isms, the negative isms, because they're also positive isms. So it was just, I just kind of took it in stride. I believe that when I walk into a room, I can be on the menu or I can be the one eating what's on the menu. And so I decided right from a long time ago to be the one to come with my utensils ready to eat so that I'm not the one on the menu. And so when I walk into spaces, I just own I just own the space as much as I can. So it wasn't too bad. The lady who was the mayor of the town called Heat Springs, where I started my practice, which had, I think it was like 1,900 people, or was it 900 people or something? They had one little street light. Just happened to be a woman. And so I was like, what? A woman is the mayor? Then we're good. We're good. And the rest is history. She offered us their old clinic that they used a long time ago, the old health center. She said, oh my goodness, this is so good. You want to start a practice here? You're welcome. We have space in our old health center. We'd like you to have it. So they were very, very welcoming.
I bet they were. I grew up in a tiny little town in the Deep South myself, and I understand what the underserved areas are like. So after you had served your visa requirements, is that when you decided to be a part of the U.S. military?
Oh no. I had my practice for 13 years. Actually, we grew from the little town of Heat Springs to the next bigger town, which is Lancaster, South Carolina, then the next town, which is Chester, South Carolina. So we ended up having 2 big locations. We went from, 10 patients to 6,000 patients, from 1 employee to 13 employees, from 1 location to 2 locations. And the practice was thriving well enough. My ex-husband was my office manager. And, but once the marriage didn't make it, I started looking for a way out. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. So after the divorce, after 13 years of marriage and 13 years of the practice, we got divorced. And so I had 3 children. I want to say 9, 7, and 3 or something like that. And I had to just make a decision on what to do with them. So I stayed with the practice a little bit, and it wasn't the same. The house wasn't a home anymore, and I just wanted out. So we moved to North Carolina, stayed there for a little bit, but I was restless. I just didn't want to stay there anymore. And so one of my kids actually said, we had a meeting. We usually have these roundtable meetings with the kids, me and them. And then I think the middle son said, but Mom, I think, wasn't Grandpa in the Air Force? Can you join the Air Force? I was like, I don't know, maybe. I don't know anything about the Air Force. And so, but I said, but that's a good idea. So I asked them so we kind of divvied it out. I was like, okay, you check the Air Force, you check the Army, you check the Navy, and I'll check the Marines, or something like that, to see the age limit And the rest is history. The Air Force was like 48, I think, if I'm not mistaken. No, 42 for medical, for medical people was 42. And I was 41. I was 41. So the conversation took place over the Martin Luther King weekend that year, and which is in January. My birthday is in March. So I was like, okay, so if we're going to get into the Air Force, we need to get into the Air Force today. So I called the recruiter, and the rest is history. Like literally, I came in as a lieutenant colonel and as a commander, and I asked to be stationed in a warm place where I could teach. And so San Antonio was born because they have a medical school here and it's warm. So that's kind of really how I
met all your requirements. And I know, I think I remember from my research that you were a full colonel when you processed out. And how many years total were you in the military?
I did 4 years, which was the amount of time for the contract. But I did do Air War College, and I did get accepted to become a full bird. I never got pinned because that was my eldest turned 16. Wait, was it 16? Yeah. Whatever age you go to college, it was 2016. So my eldest was 18. So she was going to college. And then I was like, okay, I don't want to do this anymore because I don't want my child to go off to college over there. And then I'm over here. Because I was being sent to Tyndall Air Force Base, which is in Panama City, Florida, Destin, Florida, as the SGH, or Surgeon General of the hospital. Yeah. And then my baby was going to Stanford. So I was going to Florida and she was going to California. And I couldn't do it. I was like, no, I don't want to go over there. And my kid is over there. And literally they sent full birds to come and plead with me. They sent lieutenant colonels to come and say, listen, ma'am, trust me, you want to get your full bird. You want to get your retirement. I was like, no, I don't. No, I don't. It's not that serious. So I did my time and I got out.
Yeah. And you, at that point, another substantial life change, you moved into the world of private practice, right?
Well, so my practice in South Carolina was a private practice already. What I did was
that's right.
Go through all of the things I did. I did my own private practice, then I did the military, then I joined a group practice, then I did an urgent care, and finally I called the state of Texas and I said, I would like to start a practice that I only take care of teenagers. Is that possible? And the lady said, and I quote, ma'am, if you want to take care of only those who were born on the 5th of May, 1955, you can. It's like, wow. And so my practice, my youth health center was born, where I only took care of suicidal youth. I had lost one patient to suicide when I was in private practice. Then I lost a friend to suicide, which is why my middle son came 6 weeks early. Then I had a 7-year-old who had tried to hang himself twice. And so I was like, okay, I need to figure out why these kids want to kill themselves. What's going on here? So that was when I started just kind of knowing that I didn't want to do medicine. Another reason why I left the Air Force is the higher you go in your ranking, the less clinical work you're doing. The more administrative work, the more. Yeah. So they promised me I would have 3 days, or was it 3 hours of clinical work? But they said, ma'am, we need leaders like you, and all these things. I was like, yeah, but I'm a pediatrician. I want to see patients. And ironically, I don't even do that anymore, so there's always a place and a time and a season and a reason. So, once I met that little boy, I just said, I need to figure out why these kids, I can't do it while I'm seeing patients. There's got to be another way. So that was kind of when the whole idea of life coaching was planted. It wasn't called life coaching. It was just in my head. I just wanted to speak about suicide prevention and speak about mental health in children and speak about trauma in children. I wanted to do that, but I didn't have a name for it. And so I just started doing a bunch of Facebook Lives and just talking about just childhood trauma and childhood mental health.
I think it's fascinating.
Was born, and
you point out something that I think is really profound, and that is you clearly had a vision of a need that needed to be filled, and yet there was no name for it, right?
Yeah.
So
there wasn't a name for it.
I think you really are unique in that rather than casting about and looking for what niche or what club or what particular service that you could name that you wanted to be a part of, you really gave life to something that is profoundly overlooked. I think you would probably agree with that, and have given it your own special personal touch and given it a great deal of visibility, which is admirable for you. And I'd like for you to tell us a little bit about that, about your how your interest in suicide prevention came about, and some of your experiences along the way.
So one of the things that they say about coaching is you're most poised to coach someone that you are or someone that you were. And so naturally, it goes without saying that I have been actively suicidal. It obviously didn't start with one thing. It was a series of events that led to the one day when I was driving down the highway and just wanting to drive off of the road. Most people don't know this. I know the popular opinion is, chemical imbalance and, depression. But when you look it up, if you look at the WHO's websites, you see that the top reason why people have suicidal feelings is relationship issues, and then a very close second, if not sometimes the first, is financial issues. And this is why after the Enron debacle, we had a lot of people jump to their deaths, because when you just find yourself like, wait, what? My money's gone. It's very traumatic. So I had found myself, some ghosts of my Christmases past kind of came a calling. My ex-husband who was my office manager, like I said, in my practice, turned out that he hadn't paid taxes for X amount of years. And then I found out that I was owing the IRS $329,000. So I was like, okay, what's going to happen? They're like, well, ma'am, it turns out that your practice was in your name and your name only, so you need to do it. I'm like, what? So yeah, I was very afraid. Now I know, looking back, fear literally is the false evidence that appears real. And anxiety for me is defined as fear of what may never even happen. I was just so afraid of going to jail. All I thought was, I'm going to go to jail for not paying these people their money. Like that's all I could focus on. And I just wanted out. And then, I was like, oh my goodness, I can't. I'm going to shame everybody I know. It was a lot. It was a lot. It didn't help that, when you've had other traumas, everything just bubbles up to the surface. But luckily for me, I connected with the lady who actually called me to tell me about it, or the lady who I spoke with at the IRS. She said, I'm not giving you advice, but a lot of people just set up payment plans and just pay as much as they can. And I was like, really? She said, yes. And I was, oh my God. My ex told me she had a friend who had filed bankruptcy. I'm like, what? And nothing happened. She said, no, nothing happened. Oh, by the way, did you know this guy called Donald Trump? He's filed bankruptcy status. I'm like, what? So I needed to know what I didn't know. And so I was like, okay, so this is actually viable. They're like, yes, it's viable. It's like, okay. But before the bankruptcy, the lady said, just tell me how much you can pay per month. I was like, ma'am, I'll never finish paying $329,000. She said, but you can pay $1,000 a month and we can start at that. And so that's what happened. And so after 12 months, I paid her a visit. I called her. I said, ma'am, so I've been really, really, paying my dues every month. And she said, well, I'm not going to advise you, but, some people, if you really can't, some people file bankruptcy. Because I was like, my kid's was about to go off to college. And she was like, some people do. I was like, really? She said, yes. And the rest is history. But I think the message there is you just, if you allow fear to come in, it will take over. It will. And you can't see anything else except all the things that your brain is offering you. And so once I found out that bankruptcy was an option, I took that option. I had an amazing lawyer who was really, empathetic, and then I didn't die. It's like, what? I didn't die. I thought I was going to die. I thought everybody was going to know. I thought when I walk in the room, I would look like bankruptcy. You know what I mean? Like, it was terrible. I felt really bad. I felt alone. I was scared. I was angry at my ex. Then my ex-wife said, you have all these things going for you. I know you can't see them now, but you have 3 beautiful children. You have a house. You have that. And she just said it. She helped me see that there's more on the good than not the good. She helped me see.
Do you think that is an important key when you're dealing with people who may be suicidal, to help them understand that there are options? Because my impression, and believe me, I don't have the experience with suicide prevention that you do, and certainly not with adolescent children, but my impression with them is that they all seem to feel like they don't have any choices, that every choice that they have is just disastrous and there's no way out. Am I reading this thing right?
That is true. That is 100% true. And it doesn't help if the person, also maybe has a substance abuse disorder. It doesn't help if the person also finds themselves LGBT, transgender. It doesn't help if the person finds themselves as someone who's been traumatized sexually or otherwise, or, it doesn't help. With teenagers, the good news is that the statistics have shown that all they need, for the most part, is one trusted adult to validate them. It doesn't stop the pain from happening, but it helps them see that this pain is not bigger than me. Yes, there's a space for antidepressants, but one of the things I am very reluctant to log on to is to just like, okay, it's just antidepressants. It's antidepressants. It's also the mindset, and it's also the people around you, because we are the people around us, whether we like it or not. Humans crave connection. Humans crave other humans. Young humans crave young humans and big humans. So a teenager whose parents are maybe not validating, or whose parents are divorced, or whose parents, substance abuse or incarceration or other traumas, is going to be harder. If they're being bullied, it's going to be harder. So all of those things create this world like, I have nowhere to go. And all they need is for you to just kind of pry the curtain a little bit and show them one little speck of light, and then be present for them. And they just need to feel like you're there. I like to use the example of a kite. The parent holds onto the kite, but the child is allowed the parent holds onto the rope or whatever, string, I guess is what you call it here. And the child is still allowed to fly and soar into the air. But if they're getting too close to the trees or too close to the leaves, the parent gently tugs it to move them out of that. But they still have to have that autonomy to be able to explore and do whatever they want to do. So most of my patients were suicidal. Most of them had attempted suicide. A lot of them, struggled with parental affirmation, parental drama, their own drama, their friends' drama, their relationship drama, just a lot of things. And you've been a teenager before. You can't see past your nose as a teenager. So you need someone to sit down and just look at all of these things and tell you, you know what? I still see so much goodness in you. I still believe that you can do this. And there's a combination of affirmations and working with their parents as well, which is why I left after the COVID, shutdown. I actually shut down my practice, of the lockdown, rather. I shut down my practice and decided to work with parents because I realized that a lot of the kids will come back and say, you know what? But when I get home, my mom is constantly yelling at me or whatever. I don't know. It doesn't matter. The setup at home. And so I said, you know what? Why don't I work with the parents and let them see that I used to say they are the most important person in their kid's life. And now I don't say that anymore. I say they are the most influential person in their kid's life. You are always going to be the most important person in your life. But your parents are quite influential.
You are the author of 3 best-selling books, and they all seem to orbit around this particular theme. And the most recent one, I believe, is How to Raise Well-Rounded Children, A Teen's Life. The last of the books was How to Raise Well-Rounded Children. And what I'm hearing from you is that you think that that's probably the absolute key to making sure that your children get through those very difficult years. And I don't want to put you on the spot, but I wonder if you could name 3 things, and then we'll urge people to go and buy your book because I think it's worth it. But can you name 3 things that parents could do to help make sure that their children never lose sight of the fact that they actually have a future? Can you do that? 3 things?
I don't know if I could do 3 things. Just a couple of corrections. So my first book was How to Raise Well-Rounded Children. My second book was A Teen's Life. My third book was How to Teach Your Children About Racism. And the fourth book, also a bestseller, was sold out in 4 hours, is The World Women Project, which is an immigrant women, an anthology about.
So I had it
women.
backwards.
But I mentioned
and
that.
I'm blaming
that's
that on
fine.
Amazon,
but I wanted
by the way.
I wanted to say that because, it doesn't matter. They're all my books. My next book is out in a couple of weeks, so I'm happy. But the reason I say that is because naturally there are no 3 things. I like people to just reflect on the fact that if trauma can be handed down through generations, then healing can also be handed down through generations. And I want parents to say to themselves, the trauma stops with me. And even if you were traumatized, I was traumatized. I probably traumatized my kids. But you know what? Because I've done it, I don't want you to do it. So if I can help you, then why don't we talk about it? So one of the classes I teach is parenting without yelling. Most people are like, what? Is that a thing? Yes, it's a thing. Yes, it's a thing.
Now, that'll take a lot of self-discipline.
Yes. Now you're talking. So, of course, self-discipline is one of them. But really, introspection is the main thing. Looking into yourself and then harnessing vulnerability, right? Which is why I have an event coming up called Vulnerability in Parenting. When I was growing up, my parents, quote unquote, knew everything. I never saw my dad flinch for one moment. I thought he knew everything. Then I grew up, I'm like, wait. He didn't know everything. The pressure that puts on a child is like, you can't do no wrong. You must be perfect. But now we all know it's okay not to be okay. It's okay not to be enough. It's okay to be enough. It's okay to not be perfect. It's okay for you to say, you know what? I'm willing to learn. What can you teach me? How can I learn it? Where can I learn it? What community can support me as I do it? So it's not any one thing per se. You could tell your child, I love you all you want. If you don't show your child that you love them, they're not going to believe you. Kids don't forget. Okay. You can show your child that you love you. You love them. You don't have to say you love them. They'll see it. So I think the key is that love. Where does it come from? From self, right? If you have an abundance of it, then you give from your abundance. You can't even give from your enough because you will deplete. You must be able to give from abundance. So we parents must step back and see what is our own baggage that we're carrying. How many of them can we offload before we move forward into our kids? Otherwise, we will inadvertently give it to our kids. And then kids will carry it with joy because they think that that's the way it should be until they get older. It's like, wait, I'm not supposed to do this. I say that because I work with parents of queer children, parents of LGBT kids. And I know that the biggest problem most parents have is fear of the unknown. Fear of, is a child sure? Is it a phase? Is it a choice? Are they going to get killed? Is it, were they molested? All these questions that are valid questions, except that's not what your child wants from you. Your child wants you to ask yourself, what does my child want from me today? Most times it's a hug, it's validation, it's dinner, it's eye contact, it's validating their friends, it's allowing them to be themselves, right? And that comes from you knowing that it's okay for you not to know everything. Because I'm afraid, I have a transgender daughter. Of course, I have a concern that some crazed person can just decide to shoot her, right? True. But she doesn't need fear from me. She needs me to be there for her when she calls, to listen when she wants to say something, and to get help if I need it, and to get her help if she needs it. If I allow fear to come in, I'm not going to be able to parent. I can't. I'll be immobilized. So the answer is, number one, introspection. You have to check yourself and see, where are you struggling? Where do you need to adjust? What changes do you have to make in yourself? And then your spouse, if you have one, right? Because kids they are products of their environment. Ever before you tackle your kid. Because as you and I know, we've had babies that were born in a trash can, and 3 days later, baby's still there just chilling, just maybe covered in ants, but just chilling, right? So babies have an amazing resiliency, but we shouldn't push it. We should heal ourselves first so that we can be that much more present and intentional with our own children. So I don't know if I've been able to answer your question, but each person is different and what each person needs is different. But you have to do the introspection to know what you need to fill your cup.
I can't imagine a better answer than that. I really can't, and I appreciate you for sharing that wisdom with us today. It's really profound, and I think that'll bring us to the point in the program where I like to get out of the way and give you an opportunity to speak to our audience about what's on your mind and what's on your heart. So I'm going to close my mic for a few minutes, and Dr. Lulu Umeh is going to share with us her personal prescriptions for success.
Thank you so much. So my name is Dr. Lulu. It stops at that. I retired Dr. Umeh a while back. So I go by Dr. Lulu, and thank you for the space. Thank you for the platform. I think my biggest thing that I would like people to know is that you are enough. You literally are enough just the way you are. You just need to believe that you are enough. I like to ask for what I want, even though my brain likes to focus on what I don't want. But if you know the laws of attraction, and you know, if you think about something enough, you will manifest it. So why don't you think about what you want? Why don't you ask people for what you want? My sister coach was saying this morning that, we should ask more people for what we want and not say no on their behalf, because a lot of people actually want to say yes, but you're not going to know that they're going to say yes until you ask them. If you already assume they're going to say no, you would never know if they were going to say yes. So why don't you just ask? Now that might be easier said than done, but like anything else in life, the more you practice, the more you get better, right? So practice makes progress, not perfection, but progress. And so ask for what you want and then believe that you're going to get it. So that's the B. So the A is ask for what you want. The B is believe you're going to get it. Believe you know the what. You don't have to know the how. Just know the what. And then C is conquer your fears. And a lot of times the fears are self-made. We create the fears. I mean, there'll be real ones, true, but usually the universe will find and give you people that will help you get there. Anybody you know today that is successful will tell you it's not because of what they did, it's because of what they believed. I know Michael Jordan's book was one of the first books I read a long time ago to my children. And he talks about how he won most of his games in the locker room before he ever set foot on the basketball court. How did he do that? Mindset. And then he became the greatest of all time because he believed he could. So imagine what you can achieve if you just believe that you can achieve it. So I like to say, if you can believe it, you can absolutely become it. So believe that you can, so you can become that which you already want. And then the last thing is you have to love on yourself. I know people say that a lot, but it's true. You have to like yourself. You have to love yourself. You mustn't make it about someone else, because people who matter to you will never mind. And those who mind truly don't matter. And if you can just believe that, you should be okay. When it comes to your child, if your child is, whether they're LGBT or whether they're just, they don't want to do what you want them to do, sometimes ask yourself the question, what am I making this mean about me? Because a lot of parents that come to me with their queer kids, they are making their child's queerness mean something negative and derogatory about them, themselves. Actually, it's like, I'm a parent of a queer child. Maybe I did something wrong, or maybe, So I want you to ask yourself that question. What am I making this particular situation that has to do with my child mean about me? Whatever that situation is, whether they want to paint their hair red or they want to go out with the boys all night. What are you making it mean about you? If you can remove yourself from the picture, you will see better. You will see better. So the ABCs are that for those who struggle with anxiety, which is a big one that I see a lot of people struggling with this. I have 3 A's for you. The first A is acknowledge that these thoughts actually do exist. Acknowledge that you do have scary thoughts and negative thoughts. Say to yourself, I do have these thoughts. Acknowledge that. And then the second A is analyze the thoughts for veracity, for truth. Is it really true that you can't do such and such? Is it really true that you cannot? The best way to figure out that you can is to look back at the things that you have done in the past. Like me coming from Nigeria to go to Howard, or becoming a lieutenant colonel and a commander that's decorated veteran. And, all of those things that if I had thought about it too much, I would think myself out of it, right? But I just went head first and then I figured it out later. And sometimes you need to do that. And then the third A is act based on the result of your analysis. Trust me, I was afraid. I didn't want to be commander. I didn't know anything about being a commander. So what did I do? I called the one person that I know knows how to be a commander, my father. I said, what should I do? And he said, you already know what to do. Just put one foot in front of the other. So I want you to just know that you are already enough. Whatever it is, you are enough. And if you're not enough, the universe will put the people in your place that will help you get to where you need to go. You just have to believe that you can do it. So that's kind of all I had. Find me on social media at Dr. Lulu Talk Radio. And my website is dr.lulu.com. And I'll see you somewhere on the internet. Thank you so much. Yes, I have what I call the VIP workshop, Vulnerability in Parenting workshop. I came up with that idea because I was actually invited by the local TV station to talk to parents about how to have hard conversations with their children. And I was like, the only way to do that is to lean into your own vulnerability. Tell your kids you don't have all the answers all the time. Tell them what you know and be honest about it, right? And don't just make it sound like you know everything, because a lot of times we don't. So the event is called Vulnerability in Parenting. It's it's a hybrid event. So it's virtual and in person here in San Antonio. It's on the 30th of July. We have an Eventbrite page. So if you look for Vulnerability in Parenting, or if you type my name, Dr. Lulu, it will pull up all of my events. And one of them is the VIP workshop. I would love as many people as possible to please join us either virtually or in person. Parents as much as possible so that we can help our kids know that it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to not be perfect. And it's okay to not have all the answers. So I really appreciate that. Otherwise, every week I have a support group for parents of queer kids every Monday evening. Just look up on my website. You will see the support group page. Just join us and we'll make it worth your while. Thank you.
Dr. Lulu, it's been a great pleasure speaking with you today, and I'm really fascinated by what you've written. I can't wait to get one of your books and go through it myself, and I'm looking forward to learning a lot, even at my ripe old age. So, Dr. Lulu, thanks again for being with us on Prescription for Success. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'd really appreciate a review from you, and a 5-star rating helps give our podcast much more visibility, and that helps us reach more listeners. Exclusive content is available on our Patreon page, including membership-only material like personal rapid-fire Q&A sessions with our guests. Be sure you never miss an episode by visiting our website at rx4successpodcast.com to subscribe. And while you're there, learn how to get CME credit from CMify just by listening. Special thanks to Ryan Jones, who created and performs our theme music. And remember, be sure to fill your prescription for success with my next episode.